I was sitting in the back of a darkened closet, my knees pressed against my chest, watching my wife Elena through the crack in the door as she laughed into her phone. She was saying things to a stranger, soft, intimate things that she hadn't said to me in 10 years. In her hand, she held a thick manila envelope, the one I'd found hidden under the floorboards of her craft room earlier that afternoon. I knew exactly what was inside. The legal blueprint for my own destruction. A document she'd titled The New Will. My hands were shaking so violently I had to grip my shins just to keep from making a sound. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why that night destroyed everything I believed in, I need to take you back to where it started. Because before the lies, before the documents, and before the stranger, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. From the outside, Elena and I were the couple people used as a benchmark for a successful marriage. We'd been together for 12 years, living in a restored Victorian in a quiet neighborhood in Portland. I'm an architect, she's a high-end real estate agent. We had the Sunday morning routine down to a science. The Bluebird Cafe for almond croissants, the walk through the park, the shared crossword puzzle, where she'd always handle the pop culture and I'd take the history. Our friends, Dave and Sarah, used to joke that we were nauseatingly stable. I loved that stability. I lived for the way she'd tuck her hair behind her left ear when she was concentrating, and the way she'd find my hand under the table at boring dinner parties. We were a team, or so I thought. The first crack, the very first moment I felt the ground shift, happened on a Tuesday evening in November. It was something small, almost insignificant. I was looking for a misplaced tax form and happened to glance at our joint savings account online. We were saving for a summer trip to Italy to celebrate our 10th anniversary, a big blowout vacation. But the balance was off. Exactly $5,000 was missing. When I asked Elena about it that night, she didn't even blink. She told me her sister, Maya, had hit some medical debt and needed a bridge loan. She said she was going to tell me, but it had been a hectic week and she'd forgotten. She looked me straight in the eye with that soft, reassuring smile I'd trusted for a decade. I felt like a jerk for even bringing it up. That should have been my first warning. But what came next was so much worse. If that $5,000 had been the only thing, maybe I could have let it go. But then the work retreats started. Elena began scouting luxury mountain properties every other weekend. She'd come home smelling like expensive wood smoke and expensive gin, her eyes bright and her energy high. I tried to be the supportive husband. I'd have dinner waiting. I'd listen to her talk about the incredible views and the difficult clients. But then I noticed her phone. For 12 years, her phone had been public property. We knew each other's passcodes. We'd use whichever device was closer to order pizza or check the weather. Suddenly, her phone was face down, always. It went into the bathroom with her. It stayed under her pillow at night.
One night, while she was in the shower, the phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from a contact saved only as J. It said, "The draft is ready. He won't know what hit him." My heart didn't just drop. It felt like it had been physically wrenched out of my chest. I stared at the screen until it went black. Who was Jay? And what was the draft? I felt a cold, sick sensation crawling up my spine, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself it was a real estate contract. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd been acting, the sudden distance, the way she seemed to be looking through me instead of at me. I knew I had to know the truth, but I didn't realize that the truth would be a weapon she'd been sharpening for months. A week later, I did something I'm not proud of. I installed a GPS tracker on her car. I felt like a spy in my own life, a villain in a story I never asked to be in. On Friday, she told me she was heading to a listing in Bend. I watched her drive off. Then I sat at my desk and opened the tracking app. She didn't go to Bend. She drove 20 minutes away to a luxury apartment complex downtown. She stayed there for 6 hours. While I sat in our kitchen, staring at a cold cup of coffee, she was in 4B with Jay. I felt the room tilt. I wanted to drive there, to kick the door down, to scream until my lungs burned. But I didn't. I realized that if I confronted her then, she'd just lie. She'd find a way to spin it. I needed more. I needed to see exactly what "he won't know what hit him" meant. That's when I found the manila envelope. I waited until she was out for drinks with a client, and I went through the house like a burglar. I checked the office, the basement, the garage. Finally, I went to her craft room. There's a loose floorboard under the rug where she stores old knitting patterns. I pulled it up, and there it was, a thick folder. Inside was a document prepared by a lawyer I'd never heard of. It was a new will, But it was so much more than that. It was a comprehensive plan to divest our joint assets into a private trust I didn't have access to. She was systematically draining our life together, the house, the savings, the investments, and funneling them into a future with a man named Julian Vane. There were photos, too. Not of them together, but of me. Photos of me at work, at the gym, even sleeping. She was documenting my unstable behavior to justify a lopsided divorce. She wasn't just cheating, she was erasing me. I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a long con. And that's when the sick feeling turned into a cold, hard rage. I spent the next 3 days acting completely normal. I cannot describe the Herculean effort it took to kiss her cheek when I got home, or to ask her how her day was while knowing she was planning to leave me with nothing but the clothes on my back. I watched her eat salad. I watched her brush her teeth. She had no idea I'd seen the new will. She had no idea I'd spent those 3 days meeting with my own lawyer, the meanest, most calculated divorce attorney in the city. I'd made copies of everything in that folder. Every bank transfer, every photo, every line of that predatory document. I knew exactly what I was going to do, but I had to be patient. I wanted the payoff to be perfect. The night of the confrontation was a Thursday. I told her I'd made a special dinner to celebrate a big promotion I'd supposedly landed. I went all out. I cooked her favorite, braised short ribs, and opened a bottle of wine that cost more than my first car. I set the table with the good china, the candles, the whole works. Elena looked beautiful. She was wearing a silk dress, her hair pinned back, looking for all the world like the woman I'd loved for over a decade. But as I looked at her across the flickering candlelight, all I saw was a stranger wearing my wife's skin. "To new beginnings," I said, raising my glass.
"To new beginnings," she echoed, her voice smooth as honey. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The only sound was the clinking of silverware and the rain drumming against the window. Then I reached down beside my chair and pulled out the manila envelope. I placed it on the table right next to our plate. The color didn't just drain from her face, it vanished. It was like watching a ghost materialize in real time. Her hand, which had been reaching for her wine glass, stopped midair. She didn't look at me, she looked at the envelope. "What's this?" she whispered, though she knew. She knew exactly what it was. "I think you know, Elena," I said. My voice was calm. It was the calmest I'd felt in weeks. "I found your new will. I found the trust for Julian. I even found the photos you've been taking of me while I sleep. You know, for the unstable behavior clause." She tried. I'll give her credit. She tried to lie. She looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. The same tears that used to make me do anything for her. "Mark, it's not what you think. Julian he's a financial advisor. I was trying to surprise you with a better investment strategy. I was worried about our future." "Stop," I said. I pulled out my phone and hit play on a recording I'd made from the closet 3 nights prior. Her own voice filled the room, laughing, talking about how she couldn't wait to see my face when the papers were served, how Julian was twice the man I ever was. The silence that followed was deafening. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She gripped the edge of the mahogany table so hard her knuckles turned white. Her eyes started darting toward the door, like a trapped animal looking for an exit. "Here's how this is going to go," I said, leaning forward. I felt the power shift in the room. It was electric. "I've already moved the remaining funds from the joint account into a holding escrow. My lawyer has the copies of your little new will, and he's already filed a discovery motion for Julian's bank records. If you walk out that door right now with just your clothes, I might not pursue the fraud charges for the $5,000 you embezzled from our savings. But if you stay, if you fight me, I will make it my life's mission to ensure that the only thing you and Julian share is a bankruptcy filing." She looked at me then, and for the first time in 12 years, the mask was gone. There was no love, no regret, only a cold, sharp hatred. "You think you're so smart," she spat. "You were always so boring, Mark, so predictable. I deserved more than a predictable life." "Well," I said, standing up and gesturing to the door, "you've got a very unpredictable future ahead of you now. Get out." She didn't pack a bag. She grabbed her purse and her coat and walked out into the rain. I watched from the window as she got into her car, the car I'd tracked, the car I'd paid for, and drove away. I didn't cry. I didn't feel broken. I felt light. The weight of the lies, the weight of the perfect marriage, it was all gone. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. She tried to fight for the house, but when my lawyer produced the evidence of her premeditated financial fraud,
Her legal team folded like a house of cards. I kept the Victorian. I sold it a month later and moved to a small loft in the Pearl District. I don't go to the Bluebird Cafe anymore. I found a new spot, a little hole in the wall that serves the best black coffee in the city. Sometimes I think about that night in the closet, the way my hands shook, the way I thought my life was over. But standing here now, looking out over the city skyline, I realize that the new will wasn't her plan for my destruction. It was the catalyst for my liberation. She thought she was writing the end of my story, but she was really just finishing the first chapter. I'm the one holding the pen now. And honestly, the view from here is a hell of a lot better than the one from that closet.